The U.S. Navy, deeply moved by the incredible survival of the ship, decided to give her the homecoming she deserved. In an emotional ceremony in Kure, the Japanese flag was hauled down, and the stars and stripes were raised over her decks once more. She was recommissioned simply as DD-224. Her original name, Stewart, had already been given to a new destroyer escort, but her soul remained intact. A prize crew of American sailors was assigned to sail her across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean back to the United States. It was a perilous journey. The ship's machinery was a bizarre, chaotic hybrid of American and Japanese parts, held together by duct tape, wire, and sheer willpower. Her engines coughed and sputtered, but she refused to die. In late 1945, the ghost ship finally glided under the Golden Gate Bridge into San Francisco Bay. Thousands of people lined the harbor, watching in awe as this battered, scarred veteran, a ship that had officially been declared dead 3 years prior, returned from the grave. The USS Stewart's journey ended where it was always meant to. Having fulfilled her final duty and returned her crew safely home, she was decommissioned for the last time. In May 1946, she was towed out into the deep waters of the Pacific off the coast of California. With full military honors, American warships opened fire on her in a final target practice. She slipped beneath the waves one last time, keeping her secrets, her scars, and her impossible...
It was during this period that the legend of the ghost ship of the Pacific grew. American B-24 Liberator pilots, flying long-range bombing runs over the Celebes Sea, began spotting a ship that shouldn't exist. Their recognition manuals showed no Japanese ship with that specific hull shape and machinery layout. When they looked closer through binoculars, veteran pilots recognized the unmistakable hull lines of an old American flush-decker. The rumors spread like wildfire through the tents and mess halls of the Pacific Theater. The enemy has a ghost ship. The Ghost finally ran out of places to hide in August 1945. When the atomic bombs forced the surrender of Japan, American occupation forces entered the naval base at Kure, near Hiroshima. There, tied to a secluded pier, battered by Allied air attacks but still defiantly afloat, was patrol boat number 102. An American boarding party stepped onto the deck. As they walked through the ship, scraped away layers of gray paint, and looked beneath the Japanese katakana stencils, they found the original bronze manufacturer's plates. The truth hit them like a physical blow. This wasn't just a captured asset. This was the USS Stewart. She had survived her own scuttling, survived the Japanese occupation, survived 3 years of Allied bombings, and was waiting to go home.
The U.S. Navy officially declared her dead. Her name was erased. But the Imperial Japanese Navy was desperately short on shipping. When their salvage engineers arrived at the captured port of Surabaya, they looked at the sunken American destroyer not as junk, but as an opportunity. They raised the floating dry dock, patched the massive holes in the Stewart's hull, and miraculously pumped the water out. What followed was one of the most extraordinary engineering feats of World War II. For over a year, working in the humid, oppressive heat of occupied Java, Japanese shipwrights rebuilt the American vessel from the inside out. They removed her distinctive 4 smokestacks and replaced them with 2 swept-back funnels, completely altering her silhouette to look like a Japanese patrol boat. They stripped out her American 4-inch guns and installed standard Japanese anti-aircraft weaponry and a unique raked bow. In September 1943, the dead American ship was officially reborn into the Imperial Japanese Navy as Patrol Boat Number 102. For the next 2 years, Patrol Boat Number 102 lived a double life. She was a ghost ship, a wolf.
But heroism cannot stop steel. A Japanese heavy shell smashed through the Stewart's steering gear, while shrapnel tore through her superstructure, severing lines and wounding several of her crew. Bleeding steam and struggling to steer, she miraculously managed to limp away from the battle, slipping through the dark back toward the Dutch naval base at Surabaya, Java. It was here that her first life came to a tragic, chaotic end. The Stewart was placed into a floating dry dock for emergency repairs. The damage was severe, but she could still be saved. Then, the unpredictable hand of fate struck. As the water was being pumped out of the dry dock, the support blocks beneath the ship's hull slipped. With a sickening, grinding roar of tearing metal, the massive destroyer tipped over, crashing onto her side in the muddy water of the dock. Her propeller shafts were bent, her hull was breached, and her internal machinery was violently displaced. Before the crew could even attempt to right the ship, air raid sirens began to wail. The sky over Surabaya turned black with Japanese Mitsubishi bombers. The docks were pounded into rubble. With the Japanese army rapidly closing in on the city, the order came down from high command: scuttle the ship, leave nothing for the enemy. The crew of the Stewart wept as they carried out their final orders. They placed demolition charges in her engineering spaces, opened her sea valves to flood what remained, and blew her apart. To ensure she was completely useless, a final American bomb was dropped directly into her wreckage. When the last American sailor evacuated Java, the Stewart was sitting dead on the harbor floor, a twisted, scorched monument to defeat.
For 2 decades, the Stewart was the pride of the Asiatic fleet. She patrolled the vast, unpredictable waters of the Western Pacific, showing the flag from Shanghai to Manila. Her crew was a tight-knit brotherhood of old China hands, sailors who knew the bars of the Bund, the dangerous currents of the Yangtze River, and the shifting political winds of an Asia on the brink of explosion. By late 1941, those winds became a hurricane. When the bombs fell on Pearl Harbor on December 7, the Stewart was thrust immediately into the front line of a desperate, losing war. The Allied forces in the Pacific, a hastily assembled coalition of American, British, Dutch, and Australian forces, known as ABDA Command, were completely outmatched by the relentless, lightning-fast advance of the Imperial Japanese Navy. In February 1942, the Stewart found herself in the thick of the Battle of Badung Strait. Under the cover of pitch-black darkness, the small Allied squadron charged a much larger Japanese transport convoy and its heavy cruiser escorts. The night erupted into a hellscape of tracer fire, blinding searchlights, and the terrifying wakes of Japanese long-lance torpedoes. The Stewart fought like a cornered beast. She closed the distance, her 4-inch guns roaring, firing salvage salvos into the Japanese ships at point-blank range. In the autumn of 1942, deep within the Java Sea, a steel monster was buried. The USS Stewart, a battle-hardened American destroyer, was blasted by Japanese artillery, trapped in a damaged floating dry dock, and blown to pieces by her own crew to prevent her from falling into enemy hands. The United States Navy officially struck her name from the Naval Vessel Register. She was dead. She was gone. But then, the rumors started. Months later, thousands of miles away, American pilots flying high-altitude reconnaissance over the Pacific began reporting something impossible. Through the clouds, they saw a phantom ship. It bore the unmistakable, distinctive 4-funnel silhouette of an old-school American destroyer. Yet it was slicing through the water under the flag of the rising sun, operating deep within enemy territory. The Pentagon dismissed it as battle fatigue or optical illusion. They called it the ghost ship of the Pacific. This is not a myth. It is the astonishing, fact-based reality of a ship that died twice, changed sides in the dark of night, and survived a psychological and physical odyssey that defies the laws of naval warfare. The story begins not in the heat of battle, but in the cold, industrial clatter of Philadelphia, 1919. The world had just emerged from the cataclysm of the First World War. The U.S. Navy, realizing the desperate need for fast, agile convoy escorts, commissioned a class of warships known as the Four Stackers, flush-deck destroyers built for speed, packed with torpedo tubes, and defined by 4 prominent smokestacks that gave them a menacing, predatory profile. Among them was hull number DD-224, the USS Stewart.